The Joseon Dynasty. A monk tells his disciple, "Wait just 8 days. Do not touch my body under any circumstances." Then he closed his eyes. His breath stopped. He separated his soul from his body and departed for India. Shiji. It was a technique of astral projection through feigned death. But there was a Confucian scholar who had envied this monk for a long time. He couldn't wait the full 8 days. On the 7th day, he set the body on fire. When the soul returned, there was no body to return to, and this single event changed the entire course of civilization, east and west. This monk's name was Master Jinmuk. He was a great monk active around Jeonju during the mid-Joseon Dynasty. Called a reincarnation of Buddha, he possessed the greatest spiritual power of his era. To avoid defaming real historical figures, actual names are not used here. Near Master Jinmuk's temple lived a Confucian scholar named Kim Bong-yeom. He was enormously proud of his Confucian learning, and he simply couldn't stand that Jinmuk surpassed him through Buddhist teachings. Then one day, an incident breaks out. Jinmuk borrows the Xingli Da Huan from Bong-yeom, the core Neo-Confucian canon. Bong-yeom lent it, but soon regretted it. If that monk masters Confucianism too, I'll never be able to compete. He quickly sends a servant to retrieve the books. As the servant followed the path, books were scattered along the road, one by one. Jinmuk had read each volume as he walked and tossed them aside. At the temple entrance, the servant picked up the last one and recovered them all. A few days later, Jinmuk visited Kim Bong-yeom. Bong-yeom confronted him. "Return the books you borrowed? Those writings were useless, so I threw them all away." Quote. Kim Bong-yeom was absolutely furious. That's when Jinmuk said, "I'll recite it for you. Write it down." And he recited the entire Xingli Da Huan from beginning to end without a single error. Everything he'd read just once while walking. He had memorized it all. Kim Bong-yeom checked as he wrote it down. Not a single character was wrong. This is not something a human can do. Kim Bong-yeom's envy reached its peak. This wasn't simple jealousy anymore. It was a feeling closer to terror. Time passed, and Jinmuk made a great decision. Shiji. He would separate his soul from his body and travel all the way to India. He said he'd study Sanskrit texts and Buddhist teachings more deeply. For ordinary people, this would be unimaginable. But at Jinmuk's level of spiritual attainment, it was possible. Jinmuk gave his head disciple a stern warning. "I will set a limit of 8 days and travel to India through Shiji. Do not open or close the door. Do not touch my body under any circumstances." Quote. And he entered a death-like state. His breath stopped. His body remained in the room, but his soul had already departed for India. Day 1. Day 2. Day 3. The head disciple faithfully guarded the door, just as his master instructed. But this news reached Kim Bong-yeom's ears. Kim Bong-yeom rushed to the temple. He asked the head disciple, "Where is Jinmuk?" The disciple answered, "He is away." Kim Bong-yeom said, "There's something I need to find in his room. Open the door." The disciple blocked him, but Kim Bong-yeom forced the door open. Inside the room, Jinmuk's body lay still. No breath, no movement. An empty vessel. Kim Bong-yeom's eyes flashed. Why are you leaving a corpse in a room to rot? When a monk dies, he is to be cremated. That is the way. Quote, the head disciple pleaded through tears. Master said to wait 8 days. Please, just wait. But Kim Bong-yeom scolded the disciple instead and began stacking firewood in the courtyard. He began. Kim Bong-yeom set the fire. The head disciple wailed and clung to him, but Kim Bong-yeom would not stop. He burned everything. Not a shred of flesh, not a fragment of bone was left. It was one day before the 8th day. Then, a voice rang from the sky. Bong-yeom, you and I had no quarrel between us. Why would you do this? The head disciple heard his master's voice, looked up at the sky, and wailed. Kim Bong-yeom shouted, "That is the voice of an evil spirit. Don't listen. Burn every last finger bone until nothing remains." Quote. Jinmuk's voice echoed once more. This time, mixed with anger and sorrow. "If you insist on going this far, your descendants shall never escape the Ho for generations to come." Jinmuk had lost the body he was meant to return to. His soul, back from India, had no vessel to enter. Now, if the story ended here, it would just be a tragic tale. But this story has a twist you could never imagine. Jinmuk lost his body to return to and was consumed with resentment. And what Jinmuk did next? He gathered all the Dotongsin of the east and crossed over to the west. Dotongsin, spirits who have attained the way. The spiritual energy and wisdom accumulated in the east over thousands of years all moved to the west at once. Think about it. The east had been the center of world civilization for thousands of years. China, Korea, India, gunpowder, the compass, paper, printing. 3 of humanity's 4 great inventions came from the east. But at some point, something strange happened. The east stagnated, and the west suddenly began to develop explosively. The 16th to 17th centuries. The Renaissance blossoms in Europe. The scientific revolution begins. Galileo looks at the sky through a telescope. Newton discovers gravity. The 18th century. The Industrial Revolution. Steam engines turn, factories rise, railroads are laid. The West overturned thousands of years of history in just a few centuries. Historians have created countless theories to explain this. Geography, economic conditions, institutional differences. But there's something hard to explain. Why that particular moment in time? Why so suddenly? The Joseon records it like this. After Jinmuk died a cruel death, he harbored deep resentment, gathered the Dotongsin of the east, and went to the west to work on developing its civilization. The Dotongsin went west and worked to advance its culture. In other words, behind the Western scientific revolution and industrial revolution were Dotongsin, who had crossed over from the east. Doesn't that give you chills? The reason the east stagnated and the reason the west advanced so rapidly are connected by a single event, the envy of a Joseon Dynasty Confucian scholar. The day Kim Bong-yeom burned Jinmuk's body created the reversal of Eastern and Western civilization. One man's jealousy burned a monk's body. One monk's resentment triggered the Great Migration of the Dotongsin. And that migration created the rapid rise of Western civilization. They say a single butterfly's wings can cause a typhoon. This is an even bigger story. One man's jealousy changed the course of civilization on the other side of the globe. The one who passed down this story was sage Kong Jong-song. He also said this, "Now I shall release Jinmuk from his resentment, bring him back to his homeland, and have him work to build a paradise on earth." He would resolve Jinmuk's resentment and bring him back to the east. When the Dotongsin return, a new era will dawn in the east as well. What did Kim Bong-yeom gain? True to Jinmuk's final curse, Kim Bong-yeom's descendants could never escape the Ho, generation after generation. A family of scholars became a family of farmers. Quite a devastating result for mere envy. Wouldn't you say? But Kim Bong-yeom's personal tragedy was only the beginning. The real tragedy was that the entire East lost the energy of its civilization. Think about it. When you feel envious of someone, you never know how far that envy might spread. Kim Bong-yum probably had no idea either. What he burned wasn't just a corpse. It was the future of Eastern civilization. That's what envy and jealousy do. The one destroying something is the only one who doesn't see it. The most terrifying fire isn't one that comes from outside. It's the fire of envy burning within. That's the fire that can consume an entire civilization. The next story takes a completely different turn. The greatest physiognomist of the Tang dynasty visits a household. After reading the sons' faces, he says they're so-so. But the moment he sees a baby dressed in boys' clothes, his face goes pale. If this child is a girl, she will become the ruler of all under heaven, the only female emperor in 5,000 years of Chinese history. The story of Wu Ziqian. Please subscribe and like. Your support really helps keep this series going.